last video we talked about node persist. We use node persist to make storage from our program into our system. So we are going to be using that to now build our password manager. Our password manager would be to store username and passwords for our accounts. Example, your Facebook account, your Instagram account, your Twitter account, and all those. So let's go ahead and dive into it. So we are going to be having two functions, one to create the account and one to get the account. So function create account, then function get account. Now the create account function will receive your account, an account object. So it receives that, and your get account will only want the username, the name of the account, to get you your username and password. So since we are going to be using storage, let's go ahead and make our function asynchronous. Then let's start building from here. So first thing we are going to do is we are going to initialize storage. So await storage dot initialize init. Then after we do that, the next thing we are going to do is we want to check if we already have our accounts already in storage. So let's go ahead and just say let accounts be let's just say variable accounts is equal to await again. Let's await storage dot get items, get item, then accounts. Now we are going to check if accounts actually exist, and we can use that, do that using an if statement. So we can say if type of this account over here is undefined, if type of accounts is undefined, what we want to happen is it should create a new account. So we can now say var account is equal to array. Then after that we can now say accounts dot push the account that was passed. Meanwhile, if type of account is not undefined, that means we have already declared it before. What we should have is accounts dot push accounts. So after the first one, what we have to do is we have to use await storage dot set item, then we initialize accounts and we set it equal to the accounts array. Meanwhile, for this one as well, since we have added something to accounts, we still need to add it to the accounts array. So await storage dot set item, then account is the updated accounts array. So if we go ahead and call this function, let's call the create account function down here. Create account, it receives an object, so and the name, for example, would be Facebook. The username, Jaga, and the password, you could have 1 2 3 4 5. So let's go ahead and run this now. So just call your node app.js, and our code has run. So what we can see is inside our node persist / storage, you can see that we have a new storage file here, and it contains the new account that we just registered in an object. So if we go ahead to, let's just change this and add a couple more things. Facebook, let's do an account on Instagram, and let's add maybe 6 7 to the password. If we go ahead and run this again, we are getting an error. So our error here was that in our else statement we were pushing accounts instead of pushing the account object that was passed. So let's go ahead and rerun this, and we should not have a problem. So starting password manager, and if we go back to this, we can see that it has appended our Instagram account onto it. So you can keep running multiple stuffs and adding it to your storage. So I think our create account function works perfectly. Let's go ahead and comment this out and begin to create our get account function. So also for this, we are going to be using await storage dot initialize, then also we want to get account. So river account is equal to the accounts array, which is stored in await storage dot get item accounts So after getting accounts, what we want to do is let's check if it's undefined as well. If type of accounts is equal to undefined, then let's just say no console.log no accounts found. No accounts yet, actually. So if our else statements will now be we have to check through the account array, and checking through the account array, what we want to find is accounts where the account.name is equal to this name that was passed here. So for we to do that, let's use the array.map function in JavaScript. So we just do accounts dot map like the for each. Also it takes a callback function, and you pass me, for example, a variable there that shows the instance of your array, the current element. So let's just say accounts.map is equal to then our callback will have the argument account. Then we can now have inside of it, we can now say if we call our if statement, if account dot name is equal to the name that was passed, then what we want to do is console.log account to the screen. So now we go ahead and run our get account function, get account, and let's run it with Facebook as our argument. You can see that it has gotten for us our Facebook account from our storage. We don't have it written here, so it's fetching it from the storage. Now if we toggle that and change it to Instagram, and we go ahead and run this, we can see that it prints out our Instagram account to the screen as well. So I think we are on a good place with our password manager. You can keep storing data, but it does not make sense that we still have to write our we still have to create our accounts from the code. So we'll be moving into another thing called getting arguments from user. So we are going to be working with another node module through which we can actually start getting inputs from people from our command line. So the node module is Yags. We would have to install Yags into our folder. Let's go ahead and just create a new file here called argv.js. And let's cancel this and let's make our terminal more free. So now what you have to run is npm install. First of all, let's go ahead and check let's check the Yags function, npm the Yags module, so we can know what it does. So if you search for npm Yags, you can see it. Let's do a little reading about it. So Yags helps you build interactive command line tools by passing arguments and generating an elegant user interface. So let's go ahead and install Yags. npm install Yags. Now we've installed Yags. The next thing we have to do is in our new file, let's make use of this Yags module. So to do that, let's go ahead and say declare a variable and set it equal to that module. So variable argv, which is like a short form for argument variable, is equal to require, as we have always done. So require Yags, then let's do it .argv. Let's go ahead and save this. and then let's go ahead and console the log argv. So now back in our terminal, what we can do is let's just run node argv.js. Then we can see, since we console.log the argument, what we can see here is we can see an object, and inside that object there is there's an empty array, there's nothing here, and there's our argv.js. Now if we go ahead and run node argv.js hello, we can see that we have inside our array here we have hello. So since we are able to pass this here and we can print it out, what that means is that we can actually use this argv in our code. We can use it to access what the user passed into the software. So what we can do now is let's go ahead and play around with this. And also one more thing is, if you can have named variables as well. So we can have something like name. For named variables, you have to use dash dash. You can use name, you can use age, and you can say name is, you type whatever after. So you can see we had Kazim over here, and we add David passed as another argument. So that means if we were to put a string in front of this, let's see what happens. So you can see now that we have name equal to Kazim David over here. So we'll take it slowly. And we'll try to understand what is happening. So now we have our argv variable. Let's first build a small program with this feature, and let's say if back to our command, let's leave this out. I would like to show you something else. Node. So you can see this underscore colon, which is kind of the name of this underscore is the name of the array. So for you to access this array, you have to use underscore. So what we can have here is, rather than having console.log.js, let's go ahead and dissect this and use this to work. So we can just say console.log argv, which is our object. Then let's access this dot underscore. So dot underscore. So we are accessing the underscore property of argv. So, and since underscore is an array, let's go ahead and get the first element of the array. So if we go ahead and save this and we run this, what we are going to have here is, it just prints out hello to the screen because we passed hello. If we go ahead and change this from hello to how are you, or so you see it prints out how to the screen without us having to put that in our code. We're already receiving input from the terminal into our code. So let's build a basic greet function. So function greet Now this greet function, let's say our greet function receives it receives an argument name. Let's not make it a function. Let's just go ahead and use the, so let's just use an if statement. So if argv dot underscore, if the first element of this argv is equal to greet, and greet is a string, so if the first argument of our argument, the first thing that was passed in our argument is equal to greet, let's just go ahead and console.log hello world to the screen. Now if you go ahead and run this, we are not going to have hello world, but if we have greet, we are going to have hello world printed out on the screen. Now like I said, you can pass more than one argument in your EAX. What you can do is you can pass name variables as well. So greet, and let's say name, you can use a string to greet Kazim. So if you go ahead and run this, we still have hello world, but let's try to get this name variable as well to be able to make use of it. Like we said, let's go here and let's first console.log the argv so we can see where we are going to target to pick the name. Console.log argv. So if we go ahead and run the same greet with the name, we can see that it has a property called name now that we can actually target. So rather than pick the underscore property, we can go ahead and say, let's add an and. In if statements, you can use the and operators to say and name and argv dot name, let's say, and the type of argv dot name is not equal to undefined. Then we want to print out hello, then also append the person's name to it. So hello plus argv dot name, Well, if these conditions are not met, then let's just go ahead and console.log hello world to the screen. So now if we go ahead and run Node.argv.js, we have hello world printed out to the screen. Meanwhile, if we have Node.argv.js and we have greet and we have name is equal to, no, you just have to use space and you put the string name, then you should have your greeter, hello Cousin David. So now we can go ahead and comment this out so we can see what it actually does clearly. If you run this, you just see hello cousin David. Meanwhile, if you run it without anything, it just greets hello world, so greet generally. So we can integrate this to actually receive data for our password manager and now store it into our storage. So let's do that quickly. Back here, let's just go ahead and add that. So like I said, constant variable argv is equal to require, we are going to require the yags function. Then what we are requiring from it is the argv property of the yags module that we've installed. So now what we want to do is we run our if statement here as well. So if argv dot underscore 0 is equal to, let's make that one create now. So create. Then what we are going to have is we want to access the name, the username, and the password. So then we just have to say we declare a new variable account is equal to, is an object, so let's begin to pass all elements into it. So we have name, so that means we want to expect an argument from the user in the console. We want to expect name, and so let's say argv dot name. Then also we want a username, and we want that to also come from the user as well. So argv dot username, we have to use a comma inside an object. Then aside this, we want to have a password, and we want to store that in AR. We want to get that from argv.password. Then also let's use an else if to else if. So else if argv dot underscore 0 is equal to fetch. Let's say you want to fetch your account, or get. Then what we want to have is, so the next thing after this if statement, what we want to do is we want to call the create account function. So we just go ahead and call the create account function with our new account function that we have created here, and we leave it at that. Also, if we want to get an account, what we have to do is we just have to call the get account function, and what we are getting that with is the name, which is we are going to be getting using argv.name. So else if a command is not gotten, let's just say else print out console.log please enter a command. So now if we go ahead and run this, if we go ahead and run node app.js once again, it starts password manager, and because we did not enter a command, it says please enter a command. So now if we were to run the node app.js and we use get, then we say name Facebook, then you see it fetches out our Facebook account to the screen. Now let's also create using the command line. What we are going to do is let's create node app.js, and then we say create, because we said if it gets create over here, then so create, then let's say name is equal, not equal to, we just have to append the name. We don't need this string since we can use it. However, Twitter, name is equal to Twitter, then username, let's say username is, let's say Jagger as well, and password, let's say 1 2 3 4 5 6. Then immediately we run that, we have starting password manager to the screen. Let's go ahead and check if our Twitter account was created. So let's try to now get Twitter. So now you can see that we have Twitter, our Twitter account pointed out to the screen. So we've been able to create our password manager, create account, store it in storage, then we move the step further to actually receive our account from the terminal, and we have been able to do that using two modules from the npm repository. So in the next video we'll be moving on this.